across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be with you for another thrilling night of news, views and topical debate. Get stuck in, get it off your chest. Get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It is Friday, June the 27th. Here's what's coming up. Police have arrested 3 Action Palestine activists on suspicion of terrorism after the raid on the Brize Norton RAF base that resulted in £30 million worth of damage to 2 Airbus Voyager refuelling planes. I say 30 million, they sprayed red paint into the engines. Some estimates are that it could cost as much as £55 million to repair those vital aircraft. A 4th woman suspected of assisting an offender was also detained. But as Home Secretary Yvette Cooper prepares to proscribe Action Palestine on Monday, turning them into an illegal terrorist organisation, Labour has a problem. After the Brize Norton attack and Keir Starmer's strong condemnation, Corbynista MP for Coventry North, Zara Sultana, tweeted, "We are all Action Palestine now." Speak for yourself, Zara. And now lefty Labourite Richard Bergen has refused to denounce the assault on vital military equipment in these turbulent times. I mean, with the threat, the spectre of war hanging over the world, including us, you have to ask, whose side are these people on? 0344 499 1000. Also, tonight we'll obviously look at Keir Starmer's mounting problems, the welfare bill catastrophe. He was going to save £5 billion on our massive benefits bill next week. But due to a huge rebellion of as many as 130 left-wing backbench Labour MPs, that has been watered down to £2 billion. And that is a disaster because we need to save one hell of a lot more than £5 billion, let alone £2 billion. That isn't going to cut it, folks. And the only way now that this government can ward off total bankruptcy for Britain, you guessed it, by charging us more tax hikes. It's guaranteed now, thanks to the Prime Minister being completely defeated by his backbenchers. From now on, make no mistake, he's in their pocket. They know that they can get him to do anything they want him to do. That is not very good news. Also tonight, we're going to talk about what we might call council cover-ups. There's an increasing fear that there's a web of sinister secrecy surrounding alleged migrant rapes. We've got one in Portsmouth where the council chief executive now is under investigation for allegedly telling staff and councillors not to tell anyone that an alleged rape committed in that area was allegedly committed by a resident of the Royal Beach Hotel in Southsea, which is an asylum seekers hotel. So he was telling everyone, don't tell anyone it's an asylum seeker. Why would that be? Is it because the authorities are worried that 15 years of dreadful migrant policies have made this country unsafe? And if the people of this country start to find out that migrants are committing sex crimes, all hell is going to break loose. And I'll tell you the way not to deal with that. And that's to put a lid on it and try to keep it a secret. That's exactly what not to do. So we'll discuss that a little later. Also, we need to talk about Mad Miliband, Crazy Ed Miliband's epic eco-hypocrisy. Now, he's off in November to the COP30 conflab, the climate change conflab in Brazil. You know, that joke where they've destroyed half the rainforest to build a road from the airport so that the delegates can get to the conference. I mean, this is just absurd, isn't it? Well, of course, Green Ed, will be taking a huge British delegation with him. He sent a member of his staff, a civil servant, 10,000 miles on a 10,000-mile jet trip to northern Brazil to scope out hotels for where the delegation might stay. I mean, you know, it's unbelievable, isn't it? The hypocrisy. You know, they're talking about saving the planet. Not only will he no doubt take about 400 people with him, he sent a guy in advance to scope out hotels. That's unbelievable. And he's been posting pictures on social media. So there's amazing pictures of the Amazon and things like that. What a trip. What an amazing trip. Well, we paid for his trip, and all he's doing is seeing if he can find a nice hotel for Ed Miliband and his gang. 0344499 at 1000. Also at 8 o'clock, we'll be joined by Amy Gallagher, a commentator for the New Culture Forum. I want to ask her about how 15 years of disastrous migration policies appear to have turned Britain into a very dangerous place for women. And she's a former NHS nurse. I want to talk to her about the NHS anti-women problem. They are still in the NHS doing their level best, moving heaven and earth to try not to instigate the necessary changes brought about by the Supreme Court's biological sex ruling. What was that now? A month and a half ago. The NHS is kicking back against that for all it's worth, basically because it's a sexist organisation that calls women pregnant people if they're expecting a child. Why can't you use the word women? If you don't use the word women when you're talking about mothers, you are sexist. It's as simple as that. 0344 499 1000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Friday night together. And it being Friday, of course, I got my Friday friend, I call him friend, Pete Barnes, political strategist. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Kev. How's it going?
All right.
Yeah.
Busy day.
Very busy day.
We did your podcast
Yeah,
earlier.
we did. And thank you again for doing that. It was great.
You're very welcome.
But it was a nice distraction from the terror that was happening outside, I have to admit, given all of this has been going. I mean, what a day for news again, but...
Yeah. It's a busy day. What's your podcast called again?
It's called Breaking Embargo.
Breaking Embargo.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be on an episode soon.
Yeah.
So that'll be a highlight for Pete and his fans. Right, let's get down to business. Well, first of all, we need to talk about what happened today. 4 people were arrested after the RAF Bryce Norton attack. Now, as you recall, this was earlier in the week when 2 people apparently, or some people on electric scooters, broke into this high-security RAF airbase where we've got like most of our fleet, the RAF fleet, and unhindered. They just strolled up to these planes. They filmed themselves. They sprayed red paint into the engines. They're Airbus Voyagers, vital aircraft that refuel planes on long missions. We need them. We need them at the moment. The damage that they did is estimated to be between 30 and 55 million pounds. But the security breach is extraordinary. Look, here it is. You know, they went in, did the damage, got back on their scooters and disappeared into the night. Anyway, 3 suspects have now been arrested on suspicion of terrorism, and 1 other woman of no fixed abode was arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. Now, Keir Starmer, quite correctly, and some of his acolytes condemned this assault on our military equipment, on our aircraft, unequivocally. But he's got a problem. Labour have a problem. Soon after this, of course, Labour, they moved to make Action Palestine an illegal terrorist organisation, to prescribe them, in which they'd be like the same as Hamas or Hezbollah or something. Now, if they're going to go around damaging military equipment. Arguably, they deserve this. But anyway, on Monday, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, expects this to come into action, that they will be proscribed. They'll become a terrorist organisation. That means they'll have to close down all of their social media websites. They've got 350,000 followers on Instagram, so it'll be a death blow to them as an organisation. A lot of people say, well, you know, perhaps that's going too far. My view on it, for what it's worth, is I don't like banning things. You know, I'm the sort of libertarian. But, you know, if this group are going to attack military equipment, then they have to have the book thrown at them. What I would do, I told Alex Phillips this the other day, if these people are guilty, don't forget these are only allegations, they're not even charged yet, but if it turns out they're the perpetrators, I'd stick them away for 15 or 20 years, send a message and just say to Action Palestine, look, you want to be a protest group? Fine, just join all the other idiot flag wavers and banner wavers every Saturday sneaking through our city, free, free Palestine and all this. They're doing it down in Glastonbury today. All the bands kind of finishing going, free, free Palestine, you know, they're free, free, you know, okay, that's Glastonbury for you. That's what I would say. I'd put them away for 10 years, 15 years, send a message and just say, from now on, you stick to the streets. You don't attack military equipment. But if people argue, no, they went too far, we're going to ban them, we're going to make them a forbidden, illegal organisation, I wouldn't quibble too much. Now, Zara Sultana, who is the Labour MP, Corbynista of course, for Coventry North, at the point where Yvette Cooper was saying, right, we're going to ban this organisation, she tweeted, we are all Action Palestine now. Well, you know, you speak for yourself, Zara, but, you know, that's quite an incendiary thing for a member of the Labour Party, a Labour MP to do. There we are, complete defiance of her leadership. Yeah. And today, to make matters worse, only in the last couple of hours or so, Labour's notoriously left-wing. I mean, he makes Jeremy Corbyn look like a Tory, this guy. By the way, Jeremy Corbyn was down at Glastonbury again.
Of course he was.
Oh, Jeremy Corbyn. No, Jeremy, your ship has kind of sailed. He's trying to sort of nostalgia for his glory years. What's that? When they loved him down there. They still do, apparently. Anyway, Richard Bergen came on to talk to my predecessor here, who did the Drive Time show, Peter Cardwell, and this is what happened.
Palestine Action is a non-violent group. I mean, they broke into RAF Bryce Norton and caused a lot of apparent criminal damage. You don't seem to be condemning them.
Well, this goes to the very point I'm trying to make, though. You just referred to them carrying out criminal damage, and I think it was notable that in the Home Secretary's statement about her intention to prescribe this organisation, Palestine Action, a word that kept appearing again and again was criminal act, criminal act. Well, criminal acts can be prosecuted under the criminal law. So even those opposed to such tactics should see, in my opinion, that prescribing Palestine Action, treating them as terrorists, is a dangerous step. And I'll tell you why. Because what you could end up with is constituents of mine and others who aren't members of Palestine Action or any group could end up facing potential legal action.
Although Palestine Action itself, Richard, has said that in a meeting accessed by the Telegraph newspaper, that resistance lives on the streets in cities and towns and in prison, and says that they're spreading intifada in prison. You haven't condemned Palestine Action, and I'm going to give you another opportunity to condemn the criminal acts that they did. Can you just condemn them?
Well, criminal acts can be dealt with by the criminal courts. And what
do you condemn them?
What worries me?
Do you condemn what happened to RAF Bryce Norton?
Well, there's a tradition, isn't there, in this country, a country that prides itself on civil liberties, of these issues being dealt with through the criminal courts, and sometimes juries acquit people. The acquitted the Greenham Common women in relation to.
Okay, let me ask you in a different way. Do you think it was wrong for Palestine Action to break into RAF Bryce Norton and use, as they put on their own social media channels, they filmed it, they did it, they've been straight out there saying this happened. In fact, we may not even have known about it had they not told us. Were they right or wrong to do that?
Well, that can be put before the criminal court.
What do you think?
The question you're asking me...
The question I'm asking is it right or wrong?
Well, they take direct action, which I don't take, in relation to trying to stop the genocide.
Can you just say yes or no? Can you just say the words right or wrong? What do you think?
Well, I'm sure you're enjoying this part of the show, but
not really. I just want an answer.
Unbelievable.
I can't believe that.
Unbelievable.
That's worse the second time you watch it.
Come on, you know, this was a serious attack on important British military equipment in very troubled, turbulent times. You know, it isn't an exaggeration to say that the world is on the edge. You know, we could soon be dragged into some kind of global conflict. Everything we own militarily needs to be protected, needs to be ready for action. That attack on those jets across the line, that you know, I'm all for, you know, Palestine Action. You know, good. I'm all for them being able to protest. I don't agree with them, but if they want to hit the streets and carry their flags and go, you know, free Palestine or whatever, you know, that's their right. I support their right to do that, their right to peaceful protest. But this was, it was worse as the potential charges revealed. They haven't been arrested on suspicion of criminal damage. They've been arrested on suspicion of terrorism offences. So this was arguably a terrorist attack. This guy is an MP for the Labour government. And he, you know, Peter asked him how many times, about 5, 10, something. You know, that's outrageous.
Yeah, we have to stop using the word vandalism and start using the word sabotage, because that's what this was.
Yeah.
This was an act that limited this country's ability to defend itself at a time, as you say, that the world is on the brink, and it must be taken incredibly seriously. This wasn't just a protest. The ramifications that have come from this are significant, and this is the thing, it just looks like it's a bit of spray paint. These planes are used to defend the nation right now from being tested by Russian Air Force. Like, they're in the active planes. They don't just sit there. They're not things for people to look at. They're active military equipment. And they were taken out, and you know, you can't use them now. That limits the safety of this nation. We have to come down hard on this. This isn't just like Just Stop Oil, you know, where they sit in the middle of the road and everyone gets annoyed about it. This is very, very different to the comparisons that people are making with that. I think we've got to stop. Yeah, there is a line, and that's what it is. If you put the nation at risk, its security at risk, that's the line. Yeah. And like you said, Kev, I'm all with you. Protest, very, very important. That's not this.
Yeah, well, as I say, what I would do, because I don't like banning things, I don't like prescribing anything in particular. Yeah. I mean, I'm a libertarian, I don't like that. But what I would do, if these 4 people, mainly the 3 who were are suspected of terrorist offences, in other words, doing the dirty deed, causing all this damage, I would just say to them, okay, well, you carry on as an organisation, but these 3 people, you know, they get 10 years, they get 15 years, something like that, and then you will find from now on Palestine Action's protests will be peaceful, they'll be in the streets. So there's a chance to send a message, but it looks to me as if Yvette Cooper and indeed Keir Starmer will make them illegal. Yeah. They'll become like Hezbollah or Hamas on Monday. You know, I don't have a major problem with that. No. It just isn't the way I'd go about it.
Yes, I have to agree. And it was always one of those things, when they announced this, the technicalities of the legislation were like, well, has it reached the limits and the thresholds and stuff? But as more information has become apparent, it is very clear that this does qualify. But I find it terrifying that we have members of parliament now, who are supposed to represent the British nation, who are siding with an organisation that think that is acceptable and won't publicly condemn their actions. You can, protests, all the rest of it. But this is, like we say, is very unique, it's very different, and it has to be condemned. And we've got members of the Labour Party who don't know where they stand on it. How is that possible? We're in one of the most dangerous times I think we've ever been in for a very long time now, and we've got MPs that don't know what to do or don't know what to say.
Well,
it's
amazing.
It's
not that Bergen does know what he wants to say, and that is he doesn't want to condemn what happened at Bryce Norton. I would suggest Sarah Sultana's probably on the same ship. And of course, this adds to the fact that Keir Starmer or David Lammy, the cabinet, would not voiced their support for President Trump last week when he joined Israel in those bombing attacks on Iran. We still don't know where this nation stands. So I asked about Bergen and Sultana. Whose side are these people on? I also asked this of Keir Starmer and David Lammy. In terms of the Middle Eastern dispute, whose side are you on? Because you won't tell us. Let me know, folks, what you think about all this. What should Starmer do about Richard Bergen and Zara Sultana, the people who seem to be apologists for these people who stand accused of committing terrorist offences, sabotage, as Pete quite rightly says, on 2 of our valuable aircraft. The importance of that at this moment in history cannot be overstated. We cannot have idiots like this damaging military equipment when the whole world is on the brink of war. We need to be ready. This is ridiculous. And I think, if nothing else, let me know what you think. You maybe think that we should just ban this organisation. Whether or not we ban the organisation, I think that these people, should they be guilty, they're not even charged yet, but if they're guilty of these offences, terrorist offences, I think you can do 10, 15, 20 years. Do that to them. Then they'll have a long time to think about their little scooter trip into the RAF at Bryce Norton, won't they?
Can I just add really quickly that if they do get prescribed, what Richard Bergen has just done would be a criminal act.
Yeah, but not now.
Not now.
Not now. No, and same for
Sultana. But this is the point: is are we going to have members of the British Parliament investigated for supporting a terrorist organisation?
Well,
and if we do,
we'll have to see if they change their tune on Monday. It'll be very interesting if they prescribe Palestine Action. And Bergen and Sultana, if she starts still saying we are all Palestine Action, that, as Pete says, that's a criminal offence. So interesting times, folks. Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Back in a mo.
It's pretty obvious that Number 10 are going to water this down, do whatever it takes in order to save face and pass legislation that goes nowhere near far enough to addressing the complete bloating of the welfare state, not just as it is already, which is bad enough, but all the projections about how much bigger it's going to get.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Still with Pete Barnes, political strategist. This is a building issue, I think, here, Pete. The chief executive of Portsmouth Council is now under official investigation, accused of trying to keep secret an alleged rape by a man living at the local asylum seeker hotel in Southsea. It's called the Royal Beach Hotel. In other words, allegedly, or the story is that a migrant committed a rape, and the local councillors were apparently told, the Sun reported this, the councillors were told to keep this under your hat. You know, so in other words, the public were allowed to know there was a rape, that a poor local girl had been raped, allegedly, I have to keep saying, but they were not told that the alleged suspect was an asylum seeker, a migrant. Now, also they reported that similar cover-ups were going on in London and Manchester. Also, on Wednesday, we covered a story, you'll be interested in this, in the town of Wisbech in Cambridgeshire, nice market town. The GP surgery, the local GP surgery, a guy burst in, basically shouting, screaming, causing a hell of a scene. A male nurse came to try and calm him down, and a massive fight erupted. The male nurse was quite badly hurt, and then the guy turned round and slit his throat in front of all the shocked patients. Apparently cut his windpipe. Ambulance had to come. He's raced to hospital, where I think he still is in quite a bad condition, being treated, obviously. So this was reported in the local press, the Eastern Daily Press newspaper. Locals heard about it. We got in touch with the police, and they were pretty cooperative. They said, yes, a man was involved in a serious incident at the GP's surgery, and was taken to hospital with a self-inflicted wound, which was this really bad, you know, cut his windpipe. The element that was left out, was omitted, was that he couldn't speak a word of English, and it transpires that it is believed he's a Romanian migrant. So you see what I mean? They'll tell you about the incident. Oh, terrible, man cut his throat. But they don't want you to know it was quite possibly a migrant. So the same deal in Portsmouth, same deal in London, Manchester. I suspect that these kind of cover-ups are going everywhere. So what's going on here is that we've got 15 years of disastrous migrant policies have turned this country clearly into an unsafe place for women, an increasingly unsafe place for women. And the authorities' reaction to that is to try and throw a lid on it, keep it secret, make sure the public don't know, because if the public find out that migrants are committing sex crimes, the public will go crazy. So it's all about the authorities trying to avoid incendiary flare-ups, protests all over the country. I mean, the way to deal with this problem is not to try to keep it secret.
I mean, the prime example to prove you're right, is Southport. Look what happened. All of this
exactly with Southport's all over again.
All over again. I don't give a toss about community tensions. I care about the fact that women are being sexually assaulted, abused, and raped, and nobody seems to want to care about it. It staggers me. I don't understand why this is happening. I always say you could tell it's going to be a migrant or an asylum seeker because it's only in about the 8th paragraph of a newspaper article that it's suddenly maybe if it's mentioned.
If you're lucky. Yeah. If you're the point is
never mentioned.
The point is it's very often not it's a man.
Yeah.
You know, a local man. And when they say local, they mean he was living at the local asylum seekers hotel.
Yeah, definitely. It's always the omission that makes it more obvious.
That's the point.
Every time. And you know, a few years ago, the Tories were accused of making a hostile environment for migrants and people living here who shouldn't be here. And I was can't help but see the parallels, really, of the hostile environment that the Labour Party and those in power have created to hush people up, and that nobody puts their head above the parapet. Everybody was terrified to say anything because you don't want to appear racist or all the rest of it. I think you're right. I think this is going to be a nationwide epidemic, and you look at stories like this and you tell me you don't need a national inquiry into any of this?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand how you could even sit there and argue that anymore. I thought you couldn't argue it before any of this came out, really. But it's just amazing to me. But
we've got what I think we've got at the moment, because you know there are some official migrant sex crimes being revealed now. There was a terrible case earlier in the week, the story of an Afghani migrant. He came, it was a small boat migrant, came across illegally. This is in 2023. He was billeted in Scotland. And I mean, you know, almost within moments, he raped a local 15-year-old girl. And his defence was, nobody told me about the cultural differences between Afghanistan and Britain. We had, of all things, a Qatari camel herder this week who, for some reason, was flown here for serious heart surgery. He was he was in a hospital in Chelsea in London, and he raped another patient there, a female patient there. And his defence was, I didn't know, back in Qatar, I have very little contact with women. So this is the problem, folks, that we are letting in thousands and thousands of young men of sexually active age, usually say military age.
Military age,
but they're sexually active. You know, we're talking 16 to 34. We don't know anything about them, not a damn thing. Also, they're coming from countries where women aren't even allowed to show their big toe. They get here, this is Britain, we have the sort of sexualised OnlyFans Kim Kardashian culture. I'm not making any comment about that, that's fine, this is a free country, women can dress exactly how they want to. But for these guys who come from, frankly, Muslim Islamic countries where they've never seen a woman, this is a provocative situation for them when they confront British women. And that's why we have a big problem here.
Oh, definitely. But we have to remember this is a self-inflicted problem. We willingly imported this problem. And we seem to have done nothing about it. And we can't even have the guts to even say we have a problem, some people. And that is the more concerning, that even now, with all this evidence, some people will still put their head in the sand and deny any of this is happening, or they'll try and excuse it away. You know,
no, what they're doing is they're pretending it's not happening. And that is a disaster. That is a disaster.
And I think you're so right. I know Baroness Casey has made it very obvious now with the evidence she gave to the Home Affairs Committee that the link between the rise of uncontrolled immigration from these nations into the United Kingdom has led to a more unsafe society for women and girls. It is undeniable now. So if you care about the safety of women and girls, you have to start getting control of this issue.
Baroness Casey's report, you're quite right, said there's a significant link between asylum seekers, the number of asylum seekers coming into this country, and the rape gang scandal. In other words, asylum seekers are coming into this country, she said, and in significant numbers, that was her phrase, joining the rape gangs. So this is something no one is talking about. This is something the authorities are keeping quiet. The chief executive of Portsmouth Council is under official investigation, accused of telling everybody, councillors, people who work for them, don't tell anyone it was a migrant. This is a massive problem. We're going to talk more about it later in the show. Amy Gallagher, former NHS nurse, very much a women's rights campaigner, will be talking to us at 8 o'clock. So we're going to revisit this, but in the meantime, I'd love to hear what you think about this, because I think it's one of the burning issues of our times, and it's about time we started being open about it, that we stopped hiding it away as if it wasn't happening, because it is happening, and the authorities, the police, councillors, local politicians are trying to shut it up. That's no good, folks. And when people find out, if people start finding out that they've been subjected to official secrecy about sex crimes by migrants, there will be riots again, as you say, just like Southport. So let me know what you think, folks. 03444991000. When we come back, it's time to talk about Keir. He hasn't had a very good week, has he? We'll talk about this welfare bill climb down, which is a catastrophe. It's a catastrophe for him, and it's a catastrophe for the country. That next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Pete and I have just been watching Glastonbury, actually. Yeah. Fantastic. No, we haven't. I'll tell you though, I watched a bit on the telly today. Some band called, what are they called? The Sea Cat or something. What are they called? Someone?
No
Anybody?
idea.
Pretty good band. And they finished up by chanting, "Free, free, Palestine," getting the crowd going. They're not the only ones. You know, I just don't get Glastonbury. No. Why would you want to go?
No, I don't. I always used to be the one that, out of all the festivals, you know, I would go to that would be the one because it's the famous one. But, you know, just on a very serious note, those words, "Free Palestine," were shouted by a man who then proceeded to shoot 2 people dead in DC. Yeah. It is a very serious phrase, and people yet again are banding it around, not really knowing the power of what they're saying. It's the same from the river to the sea. These are used by people much more nefarious.
You can't actually. River to the sea. That's illegal. That is basically a call for the annihilation of all Jewish people in the Israeli state. But free Palestine, I suppose you have to allow. It's a bit of a cliche these days. Yeah. They're all chanting it down in Glastonbury.
In between very expensive steak sandwiches, probably. And, you know, all the rest of it.
Anyway, good luck to everybody down at Glasgow. Let's talk about old Starmer, though. What a week he's had. Now, an extraordinary U-turn, actually, only today. Do you remember? He's only ever made one good speech since he became Prime Minister, and that was when he said, because of the migrant crisis, if we don't stop this invasion, if you like. He didn't use those words. I do, though. I love it when politicians say, you can't use that sort of language. Yeah, just watch me now. It's an invasion, okay? Thousands and thousands of mainly young men coming in, day out. He said, if we don't stop this, we risk becoming an island of strangers. It was a good phrase. People pointed out it was uncannily similar to what Enoch Powell said in his notorious Rivers of Blood speech. Now, the Rivers of Blood speech was full of content that we now find somewhat reprehensible, but some of it, you know, when he warned, he said we risked becoming an island of strangers. He said words to that effect. Now, there's nothing wrong with that because he was right. Keir Starmer picked up on that and said it. So today he said, I deeply regret saying that. He's giving an interview to The Observer saying he deeply regrets saying that we risked becoming an island of strangers. And he deeply regrets the fact that that was akin to what Enoch Powell said. He said, I didn't know, and nor did my speechwriters. That's a lie. That's a damn lie. He damn well knew. He's old enough to know. His speechwriters, they're writing for the Prime Minister. I don't care what age they are. They should know about political history. In fact, they do. So saying we didn't know is just a lie. But it's the only good speech he's made, and he's U-turned on that.
I know, yeah, I can't believe it. I agree with you. It's an absolute lie. I've helped write speeches for politicians, and trust me, every word is Googled. Every word and every phraseology. There's no way that nobody at Number 10 knew didn't know, that was an Enoch Powell line. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But what it tells to me is as a Prime Minister who just feels that he can lie. He feels that he can get up in front of the public, no matter what kind of situation, and just lie. It's amazing to me. I cannot get over that single fact of it, but it doesn't surprise me that he's had to U-turn on that, because he's in such hot water now that, that he's got to try and find some group to stick with so that he can stay in power, because the knives are out and it looks like his authority has vanished and he's clinging on for dear life.
His authority is totally shot.
Yeah.
So what's happened, most of you will know, in the last couple of days, next week, I think it's Tuesday, the welfare bill goes before Parliament. This is a bid to seriously reduce the number of people who can essentially claim for disability benefits, both PIP and straight disability benefits. So PIP is personal independent payments that help people who are disabled to get by. So it would have reduced quite a few people. Quite a few people would have lost as much as £4,500 a year. But the idea was, as proposed by the Work and Pension Secretary Liz Kendall, we need to save £5 billion a year on our welfare, our astronomical welfare bill. In fact, she and Rachel Reeves, they wanted to save a hell of a lot more than that. I think we need to save 20, 30 billion or something like that. But because of the lefty Labours, they got watered down. So they agreed on 5 billion, but 130 or so, upwards of 120, 128, I think it was, rebel, basically left-wing Labour backbench MPs said, no, that's not socialist. We're not going along with this. We will vote you down. Starmer, of course, oh no, we're going ahead with the bill. But of course, he's buckled, because they said, look, if you don't do what we said, we'll vote you down. You'll lose this. And he had to do what they say. So now the 5 billion savings, which was nowhere near enough, has been reduced to 2 billion, which is just farcical. So he's been beaten by these 130 left-wing rebels. Some of them not necessarily left-wing, just realising that if we go through with this, I'll lose my seat. Some of them represent seats where their majorities are smaller than the number of people claiming disability benefits. So 20,000, by the way, 20,000 new claimants for mental health unfold every month in this country. So we've got a real problem there. So it goes down to 2 billion. But the point is, Starmer's been beaten, and now those MPs, they know they've got him in his pocket. They're now running the country, folk, because Keir Starmer can't do anything unless those 130 MPs give him their approval.
This happening so soon into a government's premiership is unprecedented, and more importantly, this without a very key kind of figurehead for this rebellion. Most of them are led by a particular people. This is all of them. This is this is such a huge whopping chunk of his majority. It's about 160 odd now, but but nearly just 30 on the government side. But what is interesting is Vicky Foxcroft, who was the whip who resigned over this, she was the first one to go, and Number 10 went with stick over carrot. Normally, when there's a rebellion, it's like, are you out in the cold or what's happening? They pushed her out, and normally that's enough to keep everybody in line. Not this time. They feel so emboldened that they feel that they can take him down, and it's shown that they can.
They've tried stick and carrot. They've tried carrot, stick and carrot. Now they've tried stick. They've told them you'll all lose the whip And of course they turn around and say, well, if you want 130 MPs to lose the Labour whip, there goes your kind of working majority. So I wouldn't do that if I were you, sunshine. And of course he didn't. And it's so chaotic is the situation now. Number 10 is in turmoil. This guy, Morgan McSweeney, who is the Chief of Staff, he's under massive fire. He's being blamed for this absolute catastrophe. So he might get the push. Keir Starmer today, big interview coming up in the Observer at the weekend, he admitted that when he appointed Sue Gray, that civil servant, to be Chief of Staff, he said that was a mistake. I made a mistake. She wasn't right for the job. Pretty much in the same sentence, he said, I want people to judge me on my judgment. Yeah, Keir, we are judging you on your judgment, and that's why we don't think much of you at all. Honestly, this guy is all over the place. We better go to break. When we come back, I want to talk about a couple of things. One is this new one-in, one-out asylum seeker migrant deal with France. Doesn't make any sense to me. And also, quickly, we need to talk about the epic eco-hypocrisy of crazy Ed Miliband. That next. Stay tuned.
It's pretty obvious that number 10 are going to water this down, do whatever it takes in order to save face and pass legislation that goes nowhere near far enough to addressing the complete bloating of the welfare state, not just as it is already, which is bad enough, but all the projections about how much bigger it's going to get.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Pete Barnes, political strategist. Very quickly, here is Keir Starmer making that Island of Strangers speech that he now deeply regrets.
In a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
There you go. So he now deeply regrets it. You know why he deeply regrets it? Because the same lefties who have rebelled on the welfare bill said they didn't like it. The man, he's a straw man. He just does anything that anybody else says. He is not in control anymore. Let me tell you, folks, as we said before the break, those 130 mainly left-wing backbench Labour MPs, hardcore socialists, they now run the country. They've got Keir Starmer in their pocket. They know it, he knows it. Right, let's quickly move on and talk about this strange one-in, one-out migrant deal that we've done with France. So basically, after this, the main thing I thought about this was here he is doing a deal with France. This is an inherent admission that his smash the gangs strategy has simply not worked. I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke, and he must stop saying that. But anyway, that notwithstanding, the new deal is that I'm just going to work it out right. Every asylum seeker that arrives here illegally will be returned to France on the basis that France sends us a migrant who has a legitimate claim to be here. So we have an illegal migrant turns up here, we send him, her, back to France, and they send us a legal migrant. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, it's also, it doesn't really do... what are we classing as their legal right to be here? This is also, that's the real problem here, is that it's so broad now that it doesn't really mean anything to have these claims. But the interesting thing from the French perspective is this is a break from the European Union. They usually act as a solid body on this issue, and ever since Britain pulled out of the EU, we dropped the Dublin Agreement, and since that's when France said we're not taking anybody. This is a huge turn in this situation, and I bet Macron has angered a lot of people in Brussels by even approaching this subject.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen, is it?
But this is the thing. They said it's a work in progress, so read never going to happen. Anything that's a work in progress, it's not going to happen. But I mean,
so
it's just amazing.
Let's just lay it out. It's a one-in, one-out agreement in which migrants arriving here illegally on small boats would be returned to France in exchange for legitimate asylum seekers coming the other way. Most of them, it is thought, would be people who have relatives already living in Britain. So we send them an illegal migrant, and they send us a legal migrant. Now, my question there initially is, well, my first question is, why would you think this would work in a month of Sundays? But my second question is, when we send these migrants back to France, what happens to them?
Yes, yeah.
What happens to them?
No, that's such a good question, actually, yeah. But also, it doesn't really do anything to deal with the problem of the people we've already got here. Yeah. You know, you might be able to stop one or two coming, but what are you doing with the almost 40,000 people that are here?
Yeah, and why don't we just, you know, we're almost there, or just send them back. Yeah. We don't need to swap.
Yeah.
We've given the French £800 million over the years to patrol their own beaches and stop the boats, which they don't. So we come up with this ludicrous merry-go-round whereby we'll sort of swap their legal migrants for our illegal migrants. And the idea is once the message gets through to the migrants, the cross-channel migrants, illegal migrants, they'll stop coming. Well, a better way of doing this is just send them back to France anyway. You don't have to swap it. So after 800 million quid, patrol the beaches, please, and stop the boats. They're still scrabbling around trying to come up with another deal. This is an admission that Smash the Gangs isn't working, but this won't work either. Absolutely ridiculous.
They're expecting it to be announced when Macron comes in, I think it's at the 10th of July. Just to put it into context, it's expected that 6,000 people would come here illegally between now and that date. So
I haven't checked if any came over today or yesterday yet, but I'll have a look in a minute. But there's been a little respite for a few days, but you can rest assured with this weather they'll be coming over again soon. So what do you think of that, folks? This sort of bizarre one in, one out. It's not a fair swap either, is it? You know, we send them an illegal migrant and they send us a legal migrant. You know, well.
We don't want any.
Numerically, that isn't much cop to us, is it? Our problem, apart from all the other migrant problems that we've already discussed, too many of them here, causing too many problems, and costing, what is it, £11 billion a year. Our problem is numerical. So if we're just to do one-on-one swaps with 70 million people in this country, we can't keep taking in more and more migrants, more and more asylum seekers. Well, we are doing that, but we shouldn't. So this wouldn't solve the numerical problem, would it? Because for every migrant we send back to France, they're going to send us more. Could be more than that. It might not be a 1-1 swap because we're talking about people who've got families here. So that's often 3 people, 5 people. So do you think that can work, folks? 03444991000. I've got a fair idea what your answer might be, but very interested to hear what you think about this latest harebrained scheme. Just stop the damn boats, turn them round, or arrest and detain and send them back to France anyway.
Yeah.
Just send them back.
That's because that's what this shown is. Essentially, you can send people back now. That's what they've opened the door. Realistically, we've kind of opened the door to this argument now that France can take them back.
Yeah, exactly right. Right, let's. We've just got time now to discuss another story that caught my eye today. This is the astonishing extent of Ed Miliband's epic eco-hypocrisy. So in November, as I said earlier, Ed, of course, will be taking a delegation, no doubt, of about 400 British delegates. Do you remember the last one was in Baku, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And he literally took 435 British delegates. So that's how they're going to save the planet. 435 people about flying all the way to Brazil, staying in flash hotels. And of course, this is against the backdrop of the extraordinary fact that the Brazilians have destroyed miles and miles and miles of the rainforest, cutting all the trees down to make a road that will get all the delegates from around the world handily and neatly from the airport to the conference centre. It's in northern Brazil. Anyway, ahead of this absolute fiasco, this absolute joke, the COP, they should be called Not Much COP 30. They're so bad. Anyway, ahead of that, incredibly, Ed Miliband, the utter hypocrite, sent a civil servant called John Gaunt to the northern Brazilian city of Belém to scope the area out, scout it out to find a suitable hotel for the 500 or so British delegates will fly there in November. So he went there and he posted all these pictures saying, what an incredible experience. He said, sometimes life deals you a good card and all this. So we have paid for John Gaunt to destroy the planet on a 10,000-mile jet journey via Lisbon, funnily enough, then all the way to Brazil to scope out hotels, and then in November we'll be paying for 500, no doubt, British delegates, including crazy Ed Miliband, to fly to Brazil by eco-busting jets and use this road that destroyed the air forest. I mean, it's disgusting. Actually.
It is, considering the fact that tax increases are on the way, and this is what they're spending money on. You know, this country is suffering, this country is doing so much, and yet here we are.
Talking of disgusting, we've only got, I just remembered, we've got to talk about this very quickly, we've got about a minute. Richard Hermer, the Attorney General, has given his first interview. It's in the Telegraph. And guess what he said? He said people who say that Britain operates a two-tier justice system are disgusting. Richie boy, Dickie, or whatever your friends call you, if we're disgusting for saying that Britain operates a two-tier justice system, here's an idea. Don't do it. Stop operating it. You're in charge of a two-tier system. Yeah. Of course there's a two-tier system. I wouldn't mind seeing it in action for these people who've been arrested for the Bryce Norton attack. Perhaps they'll get the Southport treatment and be charged in court and in jail within about 5 days. Everybody at Southport, those summer riots last year, you may approve, you may not approve, but they were the victims of two-tier justice. Everyone else is waiting 2 years to get to court. Those people were in court within 3 days and in jail within 5. So there's one rule for them, one rule for everybody else. Awaiting trial. Two-tier justice. Yeah. They can't deny this.
No, they can't. Who will rid us of this troublesome Attorney General? As always comes to mind. But it's undeniable, and this man is just everything wrong with the British establishment at the minute in one body. There's nothing else really to say about it. It's, like, what, he called everybody a Nazi not so long ago, so at least this seems somewhat of a...
Well, let me tell you what you think, folks. If you feel we have a two-tier justice system, like Pete and I do, like I think any intelligent person does, what do you think of the fact the Attorney General thinks you're disgusting? 03444991000. When we come back, Amy Gallagher from the New Culture Forum will join us. We're going to talk about women's safety, we're going to talk about the NHS that she used to work for, and so much more. So stay tuned for that.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Pete Barnes. He's on the news now. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? This is the show that provides the top quotes for the news. Well done, Pete. Doing better than I am. Now, in half an hour, we'll be taking your calls. 03444991000. You know what we're talking about. And 9 o'clock, by the way, it's my show, What Just Happened, my excellent TV show. We'll play you a clip in a little while. So I hope you enjoy that. Well, I know you'll enjoy it because it's damn good. That's in an hour's time. We'll play you some excerpts from it later on. But before we come to you and your calls in about half an hour, we're going to be joined by Amy Gallagher. She's from the New Culture Forum. I'm not sure, actually, well, welcome, Amy.
Hello, hi.
Are you still a nurse? Are you still a nurse?
Yeah, I'm still a registered nurse. Yeah, I still do a bit of nursing work. Yeah.
But you don't work for the NHS anymore.
No.
That was my. I like the way you said no. That was my question. I didn't think that you did. Well, listen. Thank you so much for joining us. And there's a number of issues that we want to talk about. The first issue I want to talk to you about the NHS, obviously, in the fullness of time. But first. By the way, I'm with Pete Barnes, who may butt in. He's a bit like that.
Sorry.
I want to talk about women's safety. Now, we've been covering a story a couple of weeks now, which I think is very, very worrying. And it is linked to the migrant crisis and the increasing number of young men that we let into the country about whom we know nothing. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Sometimes many thousands thousands in a single week. Now, a couple of weeks ago, actually this week, we've discovered that in Portsmouth, the chief executive of Portsmouth City Council is under investigation for allegedly, the Sun reported this last weekend, but his investigation has just emerged, for allegedly telling councillors and local officials, anyone who worked for the council, not to tell anyone that an alleged rape committed on a local girl was actually allegedly committed by a man who was a resident at the Royal Beach Hotel in Southsea, which is an asylum seekers hotel. So obviously the story here is that a migrant is accused of raping a local girl, and the council chief, the chief executive, stands accused of trying to cover that up, saying don't tell anyone it was a migrant. Don't tell anyone it was a migrant. We understand that similar cover-ups have gone on in London and Manchester. I was telling Pete Barnes earlier, we covered a shocking story this week on this show on Wednesday in the town of Wisbech, market town in Cambridgeshire. There was a terrible incident, actually this time last week, last Friday morning, guy bursts into the local GP's surgery, shouting, screaming, causing a real fracas. A male nurse came out to try and calm him down. There was a huge fight. The male nurse got quite badly hurt. Then the guy turned round and slit his throat in front of him and cut his windpipe. Ambulance took him to hospital. Now we got in touch with the police about it, and they were quite cooperatives. Yes, very serious incident, man taken to hospital with self-inflicted injuries. They confirmed the story. The local paper there, the Eastern Daily Press, reported it. Major incident, surgery closed down, man cut throat, and all this kind of stuff. The detail that we weren't told, that the police didn't tell us and was not reported in the place, and the doctor's surgery wouldn't tell us either. The detail that was left out was that he didn't speak a word of English. And it is believed he's a Romanian migrant. So what I'm talking about here, Amy, is there's this fear, this growing fear that more and more migrants, asylum seekers are committing crimes, sex crimes, allegedly, I should say. And the authorities' reaction to this is to try to throw a lid on it, keep it quiet, make sure that the people don't find out, because if they start finding out that all these undocumented young men that we let into the country are committing sex crimes, all hell will break loose. So what they're trying to do is keep all of this secret, and that is not the way to deal with this situation. So what I'd like you to react to is what I feel is that 15 years of disastrous migration policies by the Tories and now Labour have turned Britain into an unsafe place for women.
Yeah, Britain's totally gone backwards in terms of women's safety. I mean, when I grew up, I had the Spice Girls. It was all about girl power and women's freedom and can wear what you want. And I've seen slowly young women becoming more and more fearful of what they wear, going out late at night. And it is because, as you say, this ongoing cover-up around mass immigration. We actually know that in the last 20 years, rapes have gone up by 3 times as much. But because we haven't been keeping data on, nationality in relation to rapes and ethnicity, we can't definitely link that to mass immigration. But actually, when you look across Europe, where places like Germany and Italy and Finland and Sweden, which do keep much more comprehensive data on this issue, you see a clear correlation between mass immigration over the last 10 or 15 years and the rise in rape in those countries. And in the countries where they do collect data around ethnicity, you see that it's always Pakistanis, Afghanistan, Iraqis, places, Middle Eastern countries, where men from those countries are sometimes 15 times or 20 times more likely to commit rape or sexual assault. This is happening to Europe, but I think people are feeling it very sharply in this country, particularly in London, because of course immigration affects London differently to other parts of the country. And there was a recent ITV report that said that 57% of women don't feel safe in London. 47% have felt that they've been followed or harassed while walking through London. 27% said that they have actually been sexually assaulted. Of course, the ITV, the mainstream media, won't then link that to immigration. They'll just say, it's just a man problem. Men and just generally have become worse. Whereas we know it's not. It's a certain type of man who comes from a country with very, very different beliefs and ideas about women. Islamic countries in the Middle East, they view women totally differently to how we view them here, particularly white non-Muslim women. That they see these women as fair game, that they can harass them, that it's their right, that they don't see these women as being of value. And people are still, more people are talking about it. We have this new Women's Safety Network, a small group that's just started. They're, getting more followers, and they're young women speaking out about what they're experiencing in London. But still, as you say, the cover-up continues, and people, the authorities still do not want to talk about this issue. And I just feel, I don't know what does it take? There was an example last week of an asylum seeker, an Afghan asylum seeker who raped a 15-year-old girl, and his excuse was that he wasn't aware of the cultural differences in our country.
Yeah, we cited that. I cited that story earlier in the show. Yeah, no one told me about the cultural differences. And what he's talking about there is in Afghanistan, they're much more relaxed about rape than they are here in Britain. And he got 12 years and he couldn't believe it, and he went berserk in the court. He didn't really think he committed that much of a crime. There's your problem. But of course, he's coming from a country where you can't even see women's faces, let alone their bodies. Now, that's at the heart of this problem, isn't it? That these young men of sexual age, most of these people that come across the channel illegally, 80% of them are young men of sexually active age, and they come from cultures where women are covered from head to toe. They get here, women don't dress like that. It's an incendiary cocktail, basically.
Well, many of them actually believe that if a woman's not covered with a burqa or a veil, that she's a prostitute. That's their actual belief. They see if a woman has her hair out, that's a sign that she's asking for it and she wants to be harassed. She actually wants that. How they view women is so different. And it used to be the case that if you were going to travel to one of these countries, the travel advice that we'd be given is if you're a woman and you're traveling to Afghanistan or Pakistan, you must be very, very careful. Never walk alone. Always be with a companion. it's a very different culture. And yet we've imported so many people from these countries, and it's just like the idea is they're just going to sort of suddenly change their beliefs or their values, and they're not going to be a risk to women. Of course they are. And they often come, there's no integration program. They view women exactly how they would have done in their previous country. In countries where there's honour-based violence towards women, where there's female genital mutilation, and we're seeing all of these things rise in this country. Crimes that previously we wouldn't have heard of are like female genital mutilation are suddenly spiking. And you feel very differently actually as a woman. You start to realise that you don't have the freedoms that we used to have, and you become very self-conscious. I know young women who are saying that they are becoming very conscious of what they wear, and that they feel that they should cover up when they're going into London. And I didn't have to worry about all of this when I was younger. I didn't have to worry about if I just have my legs out, or if I just have my arms showing, that's a sign that I'm asking for it. But that's how these men view women.
It's interesting what you said earlier, that they think if they see someone with their hair down and wearing a short skirt or something, they're prostitutes. But if you think about it, a prostitute, you still don't have the right to rape a prostitute. I mean, that's the point. They go, oh, well, if it's a prostitute, that's okay to rape. They have a totally different attitude to women, and therein lies the problem, and therein lies the massive error of letting in, over the years, thousands and thousands and thousands, it's going on now as we speak, of young men of sexual age about whom we know absolutely nothing, and they come from cultures with a kind of dangerously different attitude towards women. It's a really, really bad cocktail.
It's absolutely devastating, and as I say, we haven't had much data around this because it has just been not obtained, or it's been covered up. But we have recently had some data showing that foreign nationals are responsible for more than a quarter of sexual assaults on women, despite the fact that they make up less than 10% of the population. So we are getting this data coming through, and the point is now, well, what do we do with that data? What are the Labour Party going to do? We know that this is an issue, and it's going to become, as time goes on, it's going to become harder and harder to hide it. I know they are still trying to cover it up, but I think more and more women are getting more confident in speaking about this issue. So what are they going to do about it? And I don't think they know what to do.
Well, I think Yvette Cooper has called for more transparency on revealing the ethnicity of criminals and the type of crimes that they commit, but we're not there yet. And she's only calling for that because hitherto the system has been you can't find out the ethnicity of who's committed what crimes. So there has been, it's an institutional cover-up, and I think it's because the authorities in the government are mortified by what their migration policies have done, and their approach to it is not to start saying, right, we need to sort this problem out. Their approach to it is, let's try and sweep this problem under the carpet. Let's try and make sure that the people don't find out, because if they do find out, we might get more of those riots like we had last summer, where we also kept secrets from people. They don't learn their lessons, do they?
No, not at all. I mean, one of the recommendations of the Casey report in relation to grooming gangs was that it should be mandatory to, to obtain the ethnicity and nationality data when there are these kind of crimes. And I think that's good. That's a good recommendation. But still, even then, what do you do about it? It shouldn't be, okay, we're keeping the data, but how, we need, there's rapes and grooming gangs happening now. And we need, this should be, to me, this is like a national emergency at this point. We've got more and more young men of fighting age from Afghanistan, Iraq and places like that arriving on small boats on a daily basis.
You just mentioned, Amy, quite rightly, the Casey report, Baroness Casey, made this direct link between asylum seekers and the rape gangs. She said that asylum seekers were connected to the rape gangs, and I'm quoting her, in significant numbers. So what she's essentially saying is these people, these young men, are coming across the channel illegally. Of course, we just say, oh, welcome. Here's a 4-star hotel. Here's 50 quid a week. Here's a free doctor, free dentist, free lawyer to fight your case to stay, free food, food. Oh, by the way, you can have a dodgy job delivering food for £1,000 a week while you're here. But what she's saying is that basically quite a few of them have essentially joined rape gangs. So this is absolutely shocking and a serious scandal.
Yeah, and it's all linked. You know, as I said, grooming gangs and the rise in rape and younger women experiencing sexual assault in London, and then the pattern that's happening across Europe. You know, we can see there's so clearly a pattern. Whatever angle you look at this problem from, you see the same thing coming up again. It's Middle Eastern men from countries that view women very, very differently, and their rates of sexual assault and rape and grooming gangs is so much higher. It's so disproportionate, and it's taken us so long. I mean, it's taken us decades to just be able to fight to have this conversation. You know, if it's only recently that people in the media have accepted the findings of the Casey report, that there was this issue of ethnicity and nationality in the perpetrators. But my God, I think how long that's taken. Yeah. And all the time, you know, women and girls are just having their lives destroyed. You know, totally destroyed.
And hitherto, Amy, of course, those of us, or particularly women, but you know, I mean, I've spoken out about it quite a lot. You know, we've been dismissed as racists. Exactly. You know, that old debate extinguisher, that issue extinguisher. Oh, you're a racist. You know, you've got to be quiet. But the other thing that worries me about this, racism is a ludicrous charge, and I think even the great and the good are beginning to realise that form of attack has worn out, it's over. But what does worry me about this is there's a kind of sexism at the bottom of all this. That I know so many women like yourself. I mean, my friend Alex Phillips, who screams from the rooftops about this. Many, many women of all political persuasions, by the way. It's not a political issue, and they're not listened to. They've been people like you have been saying this for years, and frankly, men in power have been ignoring you.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? We're supposed to be, you know, in the era of feminism and #Me Too. I mean, what happened to Me Too? You know, that was this big movement about women standing up to, you know, predators and saying no, you know, not allowing people to sexually assault them. But when it's a particular group of men, all of that stuff kind of goes quiet. You know, it's complete hypocrisy that there are certain people that will champion women's rights up until a point. But then when it challenges their liberal multicultural values, then they don't care. Then that trumps, you know, women's rights. So they don't care about women. They just care about being seen to be virtuous. That's what all of this is about. And as you said, people for so long have been being accused of being racist. Even Rupert Lowe very recently was accused of being rapist, just for pointing out something that the Casey report showed, that it was Pakistani men that were overrepresented in the grooming gang's crimes.
That's a very generous way of putting it, overrepresented. I mean, it's pretty much all of them, let's face it.
Yeah. And the irony is the people that go on and on about racism, they don't want to face the fact that these crimes were racist towards the white working class girls. This is
that's a good point.
One of the biggest, you know, incidences of kind of racism in our country in modern Britain. It's, you know, the biggest aggravated, you know, racially aggravated crime to have happened to us. And these men, these Pakistani men, are racists. That they see white working class girls as lesser because they're white and they're not like them. But the people that go on and on about racism, they don't even want to look at that. You know, and they don't care.
The rape gang scandal is, as you say quite rightly, Amy, it's still going on. The worst sexual crime scandal in the history of this country, followed by the worst cover-up in the history of this country. And now we discuss this cover-up mentality is still thriving. They're covering up what's going on with some of these migrants over here. Portsmouth, London, Manchester, the story we told you in Cambridgeshire. And when we spoke to people in Wisbech, they said, oh my God, you know, the stuff that's going on here that isn't reported. And I think most towns around the country have got similar stories. It really is a big, big problem. When we come back, let's talk about the NHS. I think they have a big sexism problem as well. We'll talk about that next. Stay where you are, Amy.
the one-year anniversary next week since Keir Starmer was elected Prime Minister, and nobody thought it would be as bad as this at this stage. You know, he won a huge majority, 170 MPs, and yet we've now got a rebellion of 126. 6 more names came forward overnight to sign that rebel amendment. And now Keir Starmer belatedly has realised the threat, not just in terms of this bill getting voted down. No government has been defeated at a second reading of a bill since 1986, but also the threat, I think, to his own position. And people are now starting to brief against the Chancellor, his Chief of Staff.
It's pretty obvious that Number 10 are going to water this down, do whatever it takes in order to save face and pass legislation that goes nowhere near far enough to addressing the complete bloat.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. So I was just eating something. Very professional. Right, we're still with Amy Gallagher. She's from the New Culture Forum. Amy, welcome back. Let's talk about the NHS. First of all, before we do, tell me, or tell the audience, about your ongoing case. You used to work at the Tavistock Clinic, didn't you?
Yeah,
that was the. I think I told you once before. I live near there, and this was the place, folks. If you don't know, where they sort of spent a strange decade or so under the auspices of the NHS, telling 4-year-old kids they were born in the wrong body and things like this, giving them beta puberty blocker drugs, which affected them for the rest of their lives. So basically, they were mutilating children there, and all the locals used to call it Frankenstein's castle. But tell us about your ongoing dispute with the Tavistock Clinic, your legal battle.
Yeah, so I was there training to become a psychotherapist, and this was in 2020, where kind of around Black Lives Matter and all kind of, the extreme kind of cancel culture, and they were pushing, ideology, the ideology of critical race theory. This is ideas of white privilege and white fragility, and that all white people are racist, and then of course gender ideology as well. And I immediately pointed out that not every patient that we treat is going to think in this way, and they might not like these ideas. I mean, we should be open to different views, and that these are quite, divisive ideas. And from that point onwards, I was kind of a marked woman, and they kept pushing these ideas onto me, and I kept saying, no, I don't agree with that. And eventually I was bullied. They raised a student conduct policy against me. They said that my thinking wasn't in keeping with their anti-racist stance, because I advocated for the colourblind approach to race, so not judging a person by the colour of their skin. And they said that they'd moved on from that. And then eventually,
they'd moved back to outright racism. Yeah.
Well, indeed.
Yeah.
And eventually they said I was unsafe to be with patients, and they even tried to have me struck off as a nurse, and said I lacked an understanding about the history of systemic racism, even though I'd never even been asked about that. So yeah, I'm pursuing legal action against them. I've got a crowdfund. It's called Stand Up to Woke, and yeah, I mean, within the next year or so, I hope.
What, for wrongful dismissal or?
Yeah, so for victimisation, because when I raised my issues and I made a complaint about what was being taught, they then treated me very unfairly and marked me down. They started to raise a student conduct policy against me, for just merely disagreeing. But they were saying that I'd become really aggressive, and that I'd attacked the concept of white privilege in an inappropriate way, and all of this sort of stuff. So it's a kind of victimisation, basically, of treating me unfairly and eventually hounding me off the course. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the NHS generally. We were just talking just now about, I think, kind of an innate sexism against women that I think pervades the country to an extent, but certainly the NHS. When an organisation like the NHS refuses to call women who are pregnant women, calls them pregnant people, people with cervixes, people who menstruate, when they produce I think it was a 60-page pamphlet on motherhood, pregnancy, and never once use the word women or female. This is sexism. This is ludicrous sexism, the kind of extinguishing of women. And this syndrome has caused the NHS as a massive organisation to be right now fighting tooth and nail for all they're worth to negate the results of the Supreme Court's correct decision about biological sex. It took the greatest legal minds in our country 5 years to reach the staggering conclusion that the definition of a woman was basically someone who was born a woman. You know, a bit ridiculous, took rather a long time, but at least they came to the right conclusion in the end. Ever since then, I mean, the NHS isn't the only organisation, but the NHS has been moving heaven and earth to try and rail against that. It continues to this day, doesn't it? I mean, what do you make of all that?
Yeah, well, as I was saying, I mean, gender ideology functions a bit like a religion. I think it's a belief system, but the NHS is almost like the cathedral. That it's kind of where this ideology has flourished and where it's done its most damage. And they've been pushing this on to staff and patients and you know, all this business with pronouns and you know, obviously, as you said, the Tavistock Clinic and gender reassignment surgery, this has all happened, and puberty blockers, it's all happened in the NHS. And with the Supreme Court ruling, they have to work within the law, and the law says that women are allowed single-sex spaces, that sex is real and it's biological. But the NHS is in a very difficult position because for the last, I would say, 5 years, or maybe even more than that, maybe 10 years or more, it's been pushing this ideology more and more and more onto its staff, and a lot of them have gone along with it, and they've had, you know, Transgender Awareness Week and become a transgender ally and all of this stuff. And how do they row back from that? Because, you know, as you've seen,
they're steeped in it now, aren't they?
Well, they're steeped in it. It's the culture. And how do they say to all their staff, well, you know, all that stuff we've got you to do for the last 5 or 10 years about transgenderism, we're not doing that anymore. We've realised that you know, we've realised what a woman is and what a man is. So just forget all that. It's very hard because a lot of staff have bought into this, and there hasn't been any training around this Supreme Court ruling or around, for example, like the banning of puberty blockers or the CAS review. So there may well be a lot of people in there who just don't know. So the culture still exists and they don't know about the Supreme Court ruling, so they're just carrying on as usual. And there's been no active measures to change the culture. So it's great that we've got this ruling, and what that does is it does protect women who stand up against it. If you're a woman and you say, I deserve to have my single-sex space in the NHS, you are significantly more protected by this ruling, but it doesn't change the culture. So
in other words, Amy, I mean, the Doncaster nurses, they say that their fight has only just begun. In other words, although legally women who just now say I will not have that bloke in the changing rooms, legally they've got a justification for their stance, and quite right their stance is too, but the bosses don't like it, do they? They don't like the fact that the Supreme Court ruling has undermined all their wokery, their virtue signalling about trans issues for the past 10 years or so.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen NHS trusts openly sending out emails to their staff saying we understand how distressing this ruling must be, and we need to protect the transgender community. So they're openly hostile to it. You know, they're clearly on the side, you know, on the side of transgender activism. And you never get that, you know, the other way around. You would never get an email saying, you know, we're really pleased that this new ruling for women has preserved the rights of women at all. You never get that at all. You never see posters about women's sex-based rights in the NHS. You'll still see posters about transgenderism and the Progress Pride flag still, you know, in many NHS hospitals. So yeah, I mean, it's the bosses don't want to let go of this, probably because we've got so many DEI officers in the NHS.
800.
Yeah, they get paid.
800. It costs 40 million quid a year. 800 diversity officers.
Without this stuff, they're out of a job. They're out of a job, aren't they? What do they do? This is their. They need to keep pushing this. So I really do think that I would like to see Wes Streeting or the Labour Party. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but actually taking active steps to challenge the culture. There needs to be training about the Supreme Court ruling. There needs to be training about this idea of gender ideology, and that it's a belief system, but that actually a man is a man and a woman is a woman.
Absolutely. Listen, before you go, I just want to ask you about this story that I'm kind of confused about, but we have to talk about it because it's just one of these stories that beggars belief. This is Police Scotland, and this is the issue of, you know, the searching of trans people, trans women, trans men, and trans officers, who's allowed to search who. Well, police, I can't quite work this out, Amy. I don't know if you've seen the story, but have you, Pete, about police?
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe you can help, because I honestly...
Oh, no, I know about it. I can't help you.
Okay, it goes like this. Police Scotland say transgender suspects have the right to ask for a male officer to search one half of their body and a female officer to search the other half. I mean, what fresh madness is this?
Yeah, so this is another example of an institution ignoring the Supreme Court ruling. I mean, they can't entirely ignore it. So they have said, you know, that whatever the biology of the criminal is, regardless of whether they say they're transgender, they should be searched by someone of the same biological sex. So a female criminal should be searched by a female police officer, and so on. But they have then said, if the criminal is transgender, they should be able to request someone that's of the same gender to them. So if they're a trans woman, a man, in other words, they can request that they are searched by a woman. And then if the police force is particularly woke, that then puts pressure on the woman to go along with it. Or she can say no, but she might feel a bit sheepish about doing that. And then they even go on to say, if a man is halfway through kind of gender reassignment surgery, I mean, it's ridiculous. If he has breast implants, but he's still got everything between his legs, a woman can search the top bit of him, and the man can search the bottom bit of him, as though he's a half man, half woman.
It's ridiculous.
But I mean, the thing is, if you didn't laugh about this, you'd cry. This country, not just Scotland, this sort of thing goes on all over the UK. We're going insane over this. Now, look, I am all for trans rights. The way I see it, you live your life in whatever way makes you happy, as long as you don't upset or as long as you don't harm anyone else. I don't care if you upset anyone else. If you don't harm anyone else, live your life in whatever way makes you happy. But there are 170,000 trans people in this country. This country has 70 million people in it. Do you think maybe, just maybe, our obsession with trans issues is somewhat disproportionate?
Well, can you imagine all the issues that our police force have? I mean, over 80% of burglaries are left unsolved. Shoplifting, well, petty shoplifting basically has been decriminalised because the police won't do anything. I know so many people who have had their bike stolen or their laptop stolen. And then, of course, we've got all this, well, we've been talking about sexual assaults on women, where, you know, a lot of the perpetrators aren't caught. And what are the police doing? They're writing policies about what to do if you've got a male criminal who has breast implants and he's transgender, and who searches what bit of the body. That's what they're doing with their time. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, this is the point where I just say, you know, stop the world. I want to get off. I've had enough. Amy, this has been brilliant. Great to talk to you. Come on again very soon. The wonderful Amy Gallagher, commentator for the New Culture Forum, a former NHS nurse, as we were saying, still a nurse. Amazing woman.
Amazing, absolutely incredible. But I will make it very clear, the NHS will never backtrack on any of this stuff, because they have to admit that they actively mutilated children. That is why the trans argument will never go away. They have to admit that they did something wrong to children.
It's stunning that they did this.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was over 15 years.
And what's more insidious is people applauded them for it.
Yeah.
And still continue to defend it. There is evidence after evidence now that this stuff doesn't work. It's dangerous to kids, and they are still continuing to do it.
I mean, grown, sentient, medically qualified adults telling 4-year-old kids, indeed, we think you were born in the wrong body. I mean, God's sake, what is going on? What is going on?
It's a really good point about the NHS being the cathedral.
Yeah.
Okay, it has done more to spread this stuff than any other institution. It really has. And like you said, they're never going to back down.
She got away with words, old Amy.
Yeah, she really does. I have to admit, that's a great line.
A big thanks to Amy Gallagher there. Let us know, let me know what you think about everything she was saying, everything we've been saying throughout the whole show. In fact, we'll go to a break now, but when we come back, we'll take your calls and I'll play you a little clip from my show. So lots to look forward to. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Right, later on, in about 20 minutes now, it is my show. What just happened? Here's a taste of what's to come. Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and I've got a message for you. Welcome back to this blockbuster edition of What Just Happened. It really is a good one, I think. It's so funny that people keep calling me Meghan Markle, because it's Meghan Sussex now.
Flynn has said, Samara, I agree with you all the time, but you're just boring. Oh
my God. I refuse to work for ITV ever again. Oh my God. What just happened? Fridays at 9 on Talk. I'm a very serious journalist, aren't I?
I know.
I did one of these stunts the other week. I think it might have been that Meghan Markle one. Somebody said, well, you do some really good serious stuff. Why do you undermine yourself like this? I just said, well, lighten up.
Yeah.
Lighten up. If you can't have a bit of fun now and again. As I say, in this mad world, if you can't laugh, we're just all going to cry.
Yeah.
So let's just keep laughing, shall we? In the face of adversity. Right, let's go to the phones, shall we? Let's go straight to Martin in Cambridge. Hello, Martin.
Kevin. Yeah, I mean, it's basically what's happening in the country at the moment, and it's Antifa, it's far left, and it all goes back to Blair, with the politicisation of all, the universities and all this stuff. And all these people who went through that are now in, positions of power.
Yeah, you know what, that is such a good point. That is such a good point.
And basically, these people are deranged. They hate this country. So every time Starmer stands in front of the Union Jack, it is offensive, because he doesn't believe in this country. None of them believe in this country. In fact, what they believe in is we have to pay a penance for our former colonial past. And they will bend over backwards to anybody apart from, white British people. And it is just so offensive.
Yeah, we're being treated, or the perception is increasingly that we, the British citizens, are being treated as second-class citizens. Asylum seekers going to the top of housing queues. British people waiting for years. Asylum seekers going straight to the top of the queue, being given somewhere to live. That kind of thing. The way we treat these foreigners is sort of born, I think, of a kind of liberal self-loathing. People like Richard Hermer and Keir Starmer, they don't really like Britain. They think we're a kind of throwback to imperial colonialism. So they're constantly railing against our culture as if it's wrong. And all these wonderful foreign people who came in, they must be prioritised because they're to be looked up to. I don't want them to be looked down to. I want them to be treated as equals. Fine, equals. And that means that we are equal to them. But at the moment, we're being treated as second-class citizens compared to them.
Absolutely. I mean, what gave it away was the Windrush thing. I think it was this week or last week, where he said that the people who came over in Windrush built the NHS. No, it wasn't. My grandmother worked as a nurse at Kingsmill.
Total lie. Total lie.
It's total lie. I mean, they helped out. Of course they did.
Well, it goes beyond that, Martin. They sort of said, these people, Diane Abbott as well said all this, that essentially modern Britain, or Britain, is built on the foundation stone of the Windrush generation that came over in the 50s and that after the war.
Abject nonsense.
You know, I do believe, Martin, that Britain was around a little bit before the 1950s.
Yeah, well, the thing is 1996, which I wish we could go back to. We were 94% white British. 1996, we can still remember the Euro finals.
Yeah.
That's not long ago.
Yes. And what happened in 1996? Who became the Prime Minister?
Exactly, the following year, and that's where it starts. But can I just finish on a funny note?
Yeah.
You know that word that the Donald used this week?
The F-bomb. The F-bomb.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think we should call Starmer Sexy Fingers Starmer.
Sexy Fingers Starmer? Why?
Yeah, because he Donalds everything he touches.
I'll tell you, somebody made a very good point. It's true that more fuss and more controversy surrounded Donald Trump dropping the F-bomb than him actually dropping bombs on Iran. That's a kind of a reflection of modern society. Martin, good to talk to you. Thank you. Excellent call. Call me again. Let's go straight to Darnie in Coventry. Hi, Darnie.
Hi, Martin. How are you doing?
Martin? Martin?
Sorry, Mike.
No. Keep going.
No?
No, keep
Graham?
going. No.
I've ran out of names.
My name's Keir Starmer. Good to talk to you.
No,
it's
not.
Kevin O'Sullivan.
Oh, Kevin.
Yeah.
Hi.
So when you phone in, Darnie, when you phone in future, try and research which show it is you're calling. Who the hell's Martin, by the way?
I thought it's Martin Graham.
No, it's Mike Graham.
Mike Graham.
Yeah, well, but he's on at 6 in the morning, not now.
Anyway, sorry, I ended up washing my motorcycle and you guys called me back, so I'm back on the air.
Anyway,
now,
good to talk to you, Danny. What do you want to say?
Well, all I want to say is, I'm a South African and I've been in this country for 13 years. I'm an immigrant, but I am now a British citizen. It took me,
welcome.
Thank you very much. I love it here. I won't change anything. The only thing I would like to say is I think the path that this country is heading down to is we are letting so many foreigners into the country that the British people are going to lose their identity. And the thing about the British people is they stand together. And the thing that I think is going to happen is similar to what happened in South Africa is people are not going to stand together and just let things happen the way they are happening because they've got a government that doesn't care about them.
Yeah. What you're saying, Danny, is that there's a dilution going on of traditional British culture, and I agree with you. I mean, let's get this straight. People like yourself, I mean, particularly all the migrants who come in and become British citizens, people who come here, of course they're welcome, but we have we've sort of lowered the drawbridge and just let everybody in, and it's beginning to have a disastrous effect all over. You live in Coventry, I don't know what it's like there, but there are towns in the north that they're not really recognisable as British towns anymore. They're kind of Islamic towns. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I completely agree. And if I had to explain to you all the things I had to go through to become a British citizen, to prove that I could speak English, understand it, write it, go through all the tests. It's very disconcerting to me, but my main concern is I'm worried that the UK is going to change into a third world country in the next 25 years.
Oh, I think it's less than
because
that.
25 years. Well, that's a very generous prediction. Generous. I think I'll give it about 5 minutes. No, but I mean, the way we're going, Darnie, the way we're going it won't be 25 years. I mean, we are going downhill. We are beginning to look more and more like, this is another thing about Britain, isn't it? The way we censor ourselves. You're not allowed to say third world countries anymore. You have to say developing countries, But anyway, you're right. We are turning into a third world country.
It's because we don't value citizenship. The people in charge don't really value what it is to be British. They just see it as a rather awkward bit of paperwork that people have to fill in. And this is the real divide. There are a lot of people here rightly believe that being British and having that citizenship means something. To the people in charge, it means nothing. So that's the real difference as to why we've got this problem.
And also, Darnie, last point, I've got to go in a second. Good to talk to you. You know my name now. It's Kevin, Kevin O'Sullivan, and Mike Graham in the breakfast. Okay. But seriously, there is still, this is still a great country. British culture is still great. It is still salvageable, but we need to act, and we need to act fast. Darnie, right, we know each other's names now. You call me anytime. Good to talk to you, mate. Darnie there.
That's funny.
That's funny, wasn't it? Martin. Listen, we better go to break. When we come back, we'll take some more calls.
He's sent it publicly, so I can absolutely name him. It's Councillor Steve Pitt, who's a Liberal Democrat. So it's a Liberal Democrat-run council. And after 3 days of silence, there was a lot of social media pressure on him, and he decided to, instead of brush it under the rug, he decided to put it on someone else's desk instead, which is a little disappointing in a way, because I was hoping that he would take the forefront as the leader who decides to hire or fire a chief executive, but he's not. He's passed it through an employment process instead. So now what happens is that the director of that department has passed it on to the monitoring officer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Pete Barnes. Your dad's been on, Pete. He's left a message. I love listening to Peter Barnes, refreshing views. He's a great commentator. We may not always agree with him, but he talks sense.
Oh, right. Thanks, Dad. Because there's definitely nobody else in the world.
That's Hugh from Basingstoke.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hugh, Pete says the check's in the post. No, but well done. Thank you. I agree with you. And what we've got here? This is from Persona Non Grata. Evening, Kev. You've just been discussing diversity, and when you reveal the people that people judge you for wearing a dress or a wig, the world's gone mad. You wear what you like of a Friday night, and to hell with them. Look, trans rights, I am all for them. But there is something a bit odd in the fact that as a nation we absolutely obsess on trans issues. Look at the news agenda, it's packed. We talked about them tonight. I mean, we're the same as everyone else. We are obsessed with it. There are 170,000 trans people in Britain in a population of 70 million. By all means, discuss trans issues, but don't you think we've got it a bit out of proportion?
Yeah, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. And also, it irritates me, in the LGBT community, everybody else doesn't matter apart from the T.
Yeah.
That's a real problem as well.
Exactly. This is a quick one from Dorian. She says, referring to the Afghan who said he didn't know the culture before raping a 15-year-old girl. Was it his lawyer who told him to say this to try and get him off? Well, Dorian, who lives in Dover. Well, yes, it was. I mean, I know this. The lawyer, that was the defence. That was the best the lawyer could come up with. I mean, there's not a lot of defence against the bloke. I believe he was about 29. He arrived in Falkirk, dragged this poor girl, poor little 15-year-old, so it's a paedophile rape, by the way, behind a pub, and submitted her to a terrifying sexual ordeal. So the defence was, well, the poor guy didn't know about British culture.
And we probably paid for the lawyer.
Well, of course we did.
Yeah.
Of course we did. Yeah. That's one thing I think we should do. I think we should say to these asylum seekers who turn up, OK, so you're claiming asylum, you want to fight your case to stay. Where's your lawyer?
Yeah.
You pay for your own lawyer.
Yeah.
If you haven't got a lawyer, well, good luck.
And also, you only get like two attempts at
the madness of it. The madness of it. And don't let anyone. I keep making this point. Don't let anyone tell you, because this is what the lefties and the liberals say. They say, actually, by the time they get to when they actually land here, they come across. Okay, the journey's kind of illegal, but the moment they claim asylum, they become legal. It is legal then. No, that's not the case. They have broken the law. You're not allowed to go through the world's busiest shipping lane, the English Channel. That is the busiest 21 miles of sea in the entire world. You're not allowed to cross that in an undocumented, unregistered vessel. You're not allowed to turn up here without a passport, without documents. So they have broken our law. Now, when we say, OK, you claim asylum, here's a hotel, here's 50 quid a week and all that kind of stuff, that's a political decision. It isn't a legal decision. So don't let anyone tell you that once they say, I claim asylum, they're legal. They've broken our laws. They just have. Let's quickly talk to Peter in Croydon. Hello, Peter. What would you like to say?
Hello, Kevin. Hello, Pete.
Hey.
It's just a starting point, but these animals who think they can abuse our women and girls, what I would do is after they serve their prison sentence, I would say to them, look, we'll give you a choice. Either you agree to deportation or you're going to be castrated.
OK. It's a bit slightly extreme. Just deport them, for God's sake. No. We don't give them the choice, Peter. I don't think we have to take their nuts off. What we actually should say is, you are being deported. It is not a debate. You're going.
Well, but then you've got the lawyers, Kevin.
Well,
I would do.
But we need to crack down on it. We need to crack down on it. And by the way, I suspect that the lawyers you're talking about would probably fight quite hard for their clients to retain their testicles.
No, but
you see what I mean?
Yeah, but you can chemical. Who was talking about it, wasn't they? Someone was talking about it.
Yeah, to be fair, the same drugs that they give to kids in puberty blockers is the same drug they use to chemically castrate.
There's an experiment going on in about 20 prisons at the moment where voluntarily sex offenders are being given drugs to reduce their libido. They call that the chemical castration. But it's an idea, Peter, but I suspect it won't happen. But thanks for the call, mate. Call me again. Peter in Croydon there. I've got some WhatsApp voice notes here. Sandra on Starmer.
What worries me is if Starmer is deposed, as all good dictators usually are, someone more left-wing will become PM, and then Bergen could well be in the cabinet.
Oh God, what
and Sandra, the more left-wing leader, her name is Angela Rayner, who is, by the way, not exactly the brightest, sharpest.
The grass isn't always greener.
Exactly. I mean, she's not the sharpest pin in the pack, but she's sure as hell extremely left-wing. Jack here on Starmer again.
Imagine how embarrassing it must be to be Starmer in Britain right now. alongside the US with Trump. Just you can picture it now, can't you? Thinking he's best buddy. You know, Britain's borders are secure. We're gonna smash the gangs. How many gangs have you smashed? You see, the first 5 minutes I was in, arrested and deported loads of illegal migrants. How many have you smashed in the year? None. We have paid millions to voluntarily leave.
There's Jack giving us an entire theatrical play there.
Yeah.
Brilliant, Jack. Thank you very much.
More Sean Connery and Christopher Walken.
I mean, no, they were good impressions.
They were good, yeah.
Trump was a little bit Welsh, but not bad, Jack. Very funny, thank you. Anna, on Palestine Action.
Once this group is prescribed, I think that after any criminal prosecution, I think that there should be civil action taken against the facilitators of this group, who I understand have quite a bit of financial clout. So I think the authorities should go after their personal assets. And I think any MP now or in the future that is seen to be supporting these, as your earlier disgusting guest, should be put on the terrorist watch list.
My disgusting guest.
I presume she means Richard Bergen.
Oh, yeah, sorry. yeah. Okay, fair enough. So I'm trying to think who.
I know. Yeah.
I thought, I'm talking about you.
I'm not in favour of this lot.
Very quickly, here's Dave on immigrants.
It's just about the one in, one out of the illegals. I don't agree with that at all. We're full to the brim, literally. What we want is all the illegals deported, because we're just bursting at the seams. We just can't cope.
Certainly, we've got to think about deportations. Mass deportations will be difficult, but we've got to start thinking about it. And Dave is right. We're full up.
We only have 24 rights of returns with nations around the world. Only 24. That's amazing, really.
Yeah, we need to get a few more of them. Let's quickly talk to Emma. Emma, I'm really sorry we haven't got long, but I just wanted to get you in because I know you've been waiting. What would you like to say?
You said earlier about the powers that be not being aware of the threat. Particularly
I think they're aware of it. I think they're covering it up.
Well, I was watching YouTube today, as I do sometimes, and I came across transport